This isn't your average documentary. This is the untold rise of a nation the world once overlooked, now making giants second-guess themselves. Today, we reveal 10 countries secretly sizing up the Philippines, and quietly wondering if they're about to be left behind. Number 1. Malaysia. Let's not pretend. You've seen it too, the subtle panic, the shifting glances, the awkward ASEAN smiles. Malaysia, once the gold star kid in Southeast Asia's classroom, is now peeking at the Philippines test paper. And not just peeking, full-on squinting, sweating, and silently praying the teacher doesn't notice. Because here's the slap-in-the-face reality. In 2022, Malaysia strutted around with a whopping 8.7% GDP growth like it just won Southeast Asian Idol. But by 2023, that number dropped to 4%. Still decent, if the Philippines hadn't clocked in at 5.6% and waltzed right past it. Now guess what headline showed up on the South China Morning Post? The Philippines is now Southeast Asia's fastest-growing economy. Yeah, bet that headline stung harder than a durian dropped on your foot. This isn't just numbers on a graph. This is identity crisis-level drama. Because Malaysia was the standard, the polished skyline, the infrastructure flex, the investor magnet. And suddenly, it's giving side-eye to its scrappy, chaotic neighbor who just learned how to play the game, and is now dangerously good at it. Let's be honest, Malaysia had the reputation, the roads, the rails, the we're more developed than you attitude. But while they were busy polishing Petronas towers for the next Instagram reel, the Philippines was quietly onboarding 110 million citizens into a rising middle class. And that, dear viewer, is the plot twist. See, the Philippines doesn't care if you call its traffic a nightmare or its politics a circus. It knows what it has: human capital. A young English-speaking workforce with ambition, Wi-Fi, and just enough trauma to be deadly productive. Now even Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim is dropping lines in ASEAN meetings like, "No country should be left behind." That's not a pep talk. That's a polite panic button. Translation: we're feeling the heat, someone open a damn window. And here's what makes it worse. Kuala Lumpur used to be the cool tech kid. Startups, green energy, fintech, global conferences, all orbiting around Malaysia like it was the chosen one. Now, that same buzz is slipping into the hands of a country once known mostly for boxing, beaches, and beauty pageants. It's not just optics. It's investors. It's where the money's starting to go. Because while Malaysia is caught up in maintaining an image, the Philippines is busy being underestimated and monetizing it. It's like showing up to a fight thinking you're the champ, only to realize the guy you laughed at in warm-ups is swinging with purpose, hunger, and a full economic redemption arc. So here's the real kicker. The Philippines isn't competing. It's not asking for permission. It's just building. And the more Malaysia pretends it's still ahead, the further behind it quietly slips. Now ask yourself this: if the Philippines keeps this pace, who else should be sweating? Stick around. It only gets more uncomfortable from here. Number 2, United Kingdom. You ever watch someone dump a long-term partner thinking they could do better, only to realize no one else wants them? Welcome to Britain. Post-Brexit. Staring out the window. Wondering if that take back control slogan came with a refund policy. Because ever since the UK cut ties with the EU, it's been doing the diplomatic version of Tinder swipes. Looking for anyone, literally anyone, who'll say, "Yeah sure, I'll trade with you." And guess who swiped right? The Philippines. No, seriously. By 2024, the United Kingdom, the same one that once ruled a quarter of the planet, became the largest single investor in the Philippines' renewable energy sector. That's not charity. That's calculated admiration. Because when your own economy's barely breathing, clocking in growth below 1%, and Manila Stock Exchange is flashing green, even the most colonial of exes comes crawling back. This time with scholarships, solar panels, and suspiciously polite trade delegations. British Ambassador Laura Bowles called the trade relationship the highest it's ever been. Translation? Help. We need someone who's not sinking. And look, the UK used to be the mentor. The blueprint. The stiff upper lip that taught the world how to queue and conquer. Now, they're nervously sipping tea while sending Filipino inboxes a flood of scholarship offers like it's Black Friday for brains. From our stats, we've got more viewers outpacing subscribers. Kindly join our community, thank you. Alright, back to it. You'd think Britain, with its legacy and London suits, would be too proud to chase a former colony like a washed-up celebrity texting their old bandmate. But here's the plot twist: the Philippines isn't chasing back. It's choosing. And that scares the hell out of the old empires. Because now they're not dealing with a beggar, they're dealing with a market. A young, hyper-adaptable English-speaking population that knows exactly how much it's worth, and doesn't need you to tell them. So when people ask, isn't it weird seeing Britain cozy up to Southeast Asia? The answer is no. What's weird is watching someone who used to run the world now audition for relevance, and hope Manila calls back. They used to be kings. Now they're candidates. And the Philippines? It's not handing out crowns. It's making deals. Next up, a country that used to laugh at the Philippines, until it found itself copying it. Stick around. The karma's only just beginning. Number 3. China. You ever notice how the loudest one in the room is usually the most insecure? That guy barking orders, flexing like he's got it all figured out. Yeah, that's the one who's sweating the most under his designer knockoff. That's China right now. All bark, nuclear arsenal, and a bruised ego the size of the South China Sea. See, when China lashes out, it's not just about power. It's about panic. In 2023, the Philippines gave the US access to 4 more military bases. Beijing lost it. Not just a polite "we're concerned," but full-blown "this causes serious harm" kind of tantrum. Translation? They're not mad you made a choice. They're mad you didn't choose them. Because for decades, China played Big Brother. The "I'll help you grow but don't forget who's boss" routine. But now, baby bro is dating other people, building alliances, making moves, and Beijing's watching like an ex who sees you glowed up and got options. Let's hit you with the value up front. The IMF predicts 6% annual growth for the Philippines. Meanwhile, China's economy is growing slower than its birth rate. Their once dominant manufacturing sector, getting poached. By Vietnam. By India. And yes, by the Philippines. You ever wonder why someone with everything suddenly acts like they have nothing? Like, why so threatened if you're winning? Because they're not. China's workforce is aging faster than a TikTok trend. Their property market is crumbling. And their zero-COVID reputation? Morphed into a cautionary tale. So when they rattle sabers over the South China Sea, it's not just about territory. It's about losing the narrative. Losing control. Losing face. Masking envy with geopolitical barking. Because that's what this is. Theater. Kabuki-level dramatics masking the fact that they're watching the Philippines pull off something rare, growth without submission. The Philippines isn't just resisting China, it's doing it with style. Building foreign investment, diversifying trade, and pulling manufacturers like they're the hot new startup in a dying corporate world. From our stats, we've got more viewers outpacing subscribers. Kindly join our community. Thank you. Alright, back to the gut punch. China's playbook used to be, scare them, then offer a deal. Now, they're just scary. And nobody wants to partner with someone whose love language is coercion. This isn't just politics, this is the revenge of the underestimated. The quiet kid at the back of the class who got mocked for speaking English, now running the debate club. Hosting summits. Launching satellites. And you know what stings most in Zhongnanhai? The Philippines isn't asking permission. It's not waiting for approval. It's not trying to copy China's model. It's building its own, one alliance, one investment, one spine-stiffening move at a time. So yeah, China's barking. But deep down it knows. The real flex isn't dominance. It's relevance. And right now, Beijing is watching someone else rise. And for once, the dragon's not the one breathing fire. Number 4, Nepal. You ever see someone watching your success like it's a movie they should have starred in? That's Nepal right now. Sitting in the balcony, popcorn half-eaten, watching the Philippines take off like a SpaceX rocket, wondering where their launch pad went. Let's not kid ourselves. Nepal isn't failing, but it's definitely stalling. In 2023, they pulled off 4.3% growth. Not bad, unless you're looking at the Philippines at 5.6%, punching through turbulence with swagger. Here's the kicker, Nepal and the Philippines? They started in the same mud. Political dysfunction, economic dependence on overseas workers, and enough bureaucracy to choke innovation in its crib. But one of them chose to evolve. The other chose committee meetings. You ever wonder why some countries stay stuck in potential mode? Like that guy who keeps telling you he's going to start a business, but he's been building a plan since 2009? Nepal's running on remittances and resignation. The Philippines used those same remittances as launch fuel. Sent its people out into the world, cashed the global paycheck, then built call centers, factories, and credibility out of the wire transfers. Investment grade ratings. BPO boom. Trade diversification. All while juggling typhoons, corruption scandals, and geopolitical shade. Not perfect, just determined. Meanwhile, Nepal's still stuck trying to pass laws everyone agrees on but no one actually writes. Red tape so thick it feels like it was designed by an origami sadist. Now, here comes the twist. Nepali officials? They're admitting it. Saying out loud, we need to study the Philippines. That's rare. Governments usually copy in silence and claim it as innovation. But Nepal's got the receipts. They're taking notes. Why? Because Manila isn't just a distant success story. It's a brutal mirror. Kathmandu sees what could have been. The BPOs they didn't build. The global deals they missed. The credibility they never cashed in. It hurts more when the person you're learning from used to sit right next to you. That's not envy. That's regret, with a front row seat. And that's the story nobody wants to admit. The Philippines didn't escape poverty with a miracle. It escaped with momentum. And Nepal? Still waiting for the starter pistol, when the race started years ago. You want to reform? Then stop admiring the rocket, and build your own damn launch pad. Number 5. Brunei. What if I told you that being rich is the most dangerous way to stay poor? Sounds backwards, right? But Brunei proves it's painfully true. Here's a country dripping in oil money, palaces, free healthcare, zero taxes, and yet, growth is flatlining. Youth unemployment is creeping higher. And the oil? Yeah, that well is drying faster than your motivation on a Monday morning. See, wealth is a hell of a sedative. It lulls you into thinking movement equals progress. But Brunei isn't moving, it's reclining. On a velvet couch. With gold embroidery. While the house catches fire behind it. Meanwhile, the Philippines, the so-called underdog, is sprinting. Digital boom. BPO explosion. $40 billion in remittances. Investment-grade economy. And Brunei? Still hoping oil prices will somehow find a time machine back to 2011. You ever wonder why dynasties fall? Not from war. From comfort. From sipping too long at the top while hungrier nations build staircases out of adversity. Now here's the twist. Brunei needs the Philippines. Badly. Filipino doctors are running their hospitals. Filipino engineers are building their roads. Filipino teachers are educating their next generation. That's not a flex, that's a lifeline. Imagine needing CPR. And the hand on your chest belongs to the country you once looked down on. And get this, Brunei's own ministers? They're saying the quiet part out loud, we need to diversify. Look at the Philippines. Translation? We snoozed. They sprinted. It's the equivalent of the rich kid in school copying homework from a scholarship student they ignored all semester. Because oil can buy silence, but it can't buy momentum. It can rent time, but it can't lease innovation. Brunei is living proof. Riches rot if you don't rotate. It's like having a luxury car you never drive. It just looks good while rust eats the engine. And the Philippines? It turned its scars into strategies. It exported labor, attracted tech, stabilized inflation, and didn't just talk about resilience, it weaponized it. So yeah, Brunei still has money. But the Philippines has movement, purpose, velocity. And in the new global economy, that's the real currency. Because the future doesn't wait for royalty, it follows the hustlers. Number 6. Australia. What happens when your little brother starts lifting more weight than you at the gym? You cheer, at first. Then you realize he's not spotting you anymore, he's sprinting past you. That's what's happening to Australia right now. And yeah, it's awkward. Australia isn't used to being outpaced. For decades, it's been the dependable middle child of global politics, calm, collected, economically comfortable. But now, it's watching its once overlooked neighbor, the Philippines, evolve from sidekick to scene stealer. Let's not sugarcoat it, Australia's economy is solid, sure. But the Philippines? It's electric. The energy is different. And Canberra's feeling the shift. In 2023, Australia launched joint patrols with the Philippines. In 2024, they upgraded it to a strategic partnership. Sounds friendly, right? But let's be honest, when a country starts strategic partnering with you that fast, it's not a bromance. It's a pivot. And it's not just military drills. It's economics. It's influence. It's the optics. Because here's the part no one says out loud. Australia needs the Philippines more than the Philippines needs Australia now. Let that sink in. A G20 country with near-universal healthcare, clinging to the coattails of a nation it used to overlook. You ever notice how people act when someone they underestimated starts winning? First, they joke. Then they copy. Then they cling. Trade Minister Don Farrell didn't even try to hide it. In 2023 he said, "We're doubling down on trade with the Philippines." Translation? We missed the first rocket. We're not missing this one. Why the panic? Because Australia sees what's coming. A country with 115 million people, a median age of 25, and a service economy that's growing like a weed in Miracle-Gro? That's not an ally, that's a rising empire. And here's the kicker, the Philippines isn't even flexing yet. This is just the warm-up lap. Meanwhile, Australia's economic model? Heavily tied to mining, housing, and China. Not exactly the trio you'd bet your future on in today's climate. It's like investing your retirement in blockbuster stock and hoping nostalgia pays the bills. Let's be real, alliances aren't charity. They're insurance. And right now, Australia's hedging its bets on Manila because Manila has something Canberra can't buy: momentum. Australia still talks about stability. But the Philippines? It's talking about scale, reach, influence. That's the new language of power, and it's being spoken in Taglish. So yes, Australia's still strong. Still relevant. Still chill. But the Philippines just went from background character to plot twist. And like every good twist, it changes everything. Because in this region, it's not about who's older. It's about who's hungrier. And the Philippines? It's not just hungry, it's starving for the future. While Australia's just full. And a little too comfortable. Number 7. India. What happens when the world's quietest underdog finally learns how to bark, and the giant starts listening? It starts with silence. Not from fear, but from focus. For decades, the Philippines worked behind the scenes, answering phones at midnight, coding someone else's future, building economies it would never see. While India boomed in the spotlight, the Philippines was backstage, reliable, invisible, overlooked. Until the calls stopped being just customer service and started being strategy. Today, the Philippines is the second largest BPO empire after India. But here's the twist, it's not just catching up. It's doing it faster. Pause on that. Faster. That's the sound that makes titans sit up straight. India, the juggernaut of tech, trade and talent, isn't panicking. But it's paying attention. Because something shifted. In ASEAN forums, Indo-Pacific dialogues, even BRICS Plus conversations, the Philippines is showing up. Not as a guest, but as a player. And this isn't just policy and PowerPoints. This is about identity. India once looked across Asia and saw shadows. Now it sees a reflection of ambition, of resilience, of a country that refused to stay small. Let me tell you a story. In 1998, a Filipino call center worker made less in a month than a Bangalore tech grad made in a week. 2 decades later, that same worker's daughter is leading regional strategy for an American conglomerate from Manila. Not Mumbai. Manila. It's not about rivalry. It's about reckoning. Because when you've always been the tallest in the room, you don't look down until someone's already beside you. That's India's tension. And the Philippines? It's not asking for approval anymore. It's earning comparison. And here's the gut punch. India's the tiger. Always has been. But the Philippines? It's the stray dog that got fed just enough hope to survive, and now it bites. Not out of anger, but because no one ever taught it how to beg. You know what terrifies power more than failure? Being forgotten. And if India doesn't look twice, the Philippines won't just catch up, it'll be the reason India stops running. Now sit with that. Number 8, Japan. You ever teach someone everything you know, only to wake up one day and realize they're doing it better than you ever did? Yeah. That's Japan right now, watching the Philippines like a confused old sensei who suddenly realized the students stopped asking questions and started winning matches. Let's call it what it is, role reversal. For decades, Japan poured billions into the Philippines, loans, aid, infrastructure deals. They built bridges, roads, railways, like a dad handing his kid the keys to life. And for years, the kid said thank you, bowed, smiled, studied, struggled. Then something happened. The kid grew up. Real fast. Now, Japan's stuck at 1.7% growth, with a median age that screams retirement home, while the Philippines is sprinting ahead with 113 million people and a median age of 25. 25. That's not just a young workforce. That's a full-blown energy drink in human form. Here's the kicker. Japan needs nurses, engineers, caregivers. You know who they're calling? Not the EU. Not the US. They're calling the Philippines. The same country they once sent textbooks and typhoon relief to is now sending people to literally keep Japan standing upright. That's not aid. That's irony. Prime Minister Kishida stands at a podium and calls the Philippines a vital partner. Sounds diplomatic, right? But you know what Tokyo's really thinking behind closed doors? Wait, how the hell did they pull this off? Because while Japan's making robot dogs and pondering a birth rate crisis, the Philippines is out here like, oh, you need workers. We've got 40 million young adults who just finished their shift and are ready for more. This is the joke. Japan built a robot that can play the violin. The Philippines built a generation that can survive 3 jobs, for typhoons, and still send money home. Let that sit for a minute. Japan isn't just losing population. It's losing momentum. And guess who's lapping them on the track with duct-taped shoes and a busted economy? Yep. The so-called pupil. You want to talk painful? Imagine being the honor student your whole life, and now the class clown is winning CEO of the year. That's what this feels like. It's not disrespect. It's reality. Brutal, beautiful, and completely deserved. Because the Philippines didn't just catch up, it took the pain, the poverty, the patronizing smiles, and turned it into a growth engine. And now, Japan isn't mentoring. It's studying. Quietly. Desperately. Because there's one terrifying truth no one in Tokyo wants to admit out loud. The student didn't just become the teacher. The student became the future. And if Japan wants to keep up, it better start learning. Number 9, Singapore. Remember when Singapore was the gold standard? The city that worked like a Swiss watch, looked like a sci-fi film, and talked like a TED Talk? Yeah, we all looked up to it. It was clean, rich, ruthless about efficiency. The poster child of this is what Southeast Asia could be, if it just got its act together. Well, the Lion City just blinked. In 2023, Singapore clocked in a GDP growth of just 1.1%. That's not a recession, but it sure ain't roaring either. And beneath the sleek skyline, a median age of 43. Translation: the population is aging fast. And unlike wine, economies don't get better with age, not unless you reinvent the whole vineyard. Now look across the sea. The Philippines? GDP growth hit 5.6%. Median age? 25.7. That's not just youth, that's momentum, energy, chaos in a good way. We're talking millions of workers, dreamers, and digital nomads ready to rewrite the playbook. And guess what? Singapore noticed. Temasek, Singapore's sovereign wealth fund, has been quietly but aggressively investing in Filipino fintech and real estate. Why? Because when your economy starts limping, you invest in one that's sprinting. In 2024, Singapore emerged as one of the top foreign investors in the Philippines. Read that again. The mentor just bought into the student's hustle. This isn't shade. It's strategy. Even Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong hinted, Southeast Asia's rebound has been uneven. Which is polite speak for, some of us are stalling, and it's freaking us out. Now, let's not pretend Singapore is collapsing. It still dominates finance, tech, logistics, and the don't chew gum on my sidewalk Olympics. But here's the truth no one wants to admit, even the most stable kingdoms need a reboot. Because what do you do when your economy slows, your workforce ages, and the neighbors you used to mentor start beating you at your own game? You adapt. Or you fade. This is where things get poetic. The Lion City, reflecting on its past glory. The Tiger Cub, charging full speed into the future. Same jungle. Very different trajectories. And here's the twist. For years we asked, how can we be more like Singapore? Now, Singapore is asking, how do we stay relevant while the Philippines grows into a regional force? We're living in a moment where the old powerhouses are being challenged, not by revolution, but by evolution. So, who leads Southeast Asia in 10 years? The seasoned veteran with all the scars? Or the hungry newcomer with something to prove? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the Philippines has what it takes to lead? Or will Singapore pull off a reinvention story that stuns everyone? And hey, if this gave you something to think about, smash that like button, subscribe, and stay locked in. Because next up, we're flying back to Vietnam, and trust me, they're not watching quietly from the sidelines. They're gunning for the crown. And they're not coming empty-handed. Stay tuned. Number 10, Vietnam. You ever get passed by someone you taught how to drive? Yeah, that's Vietnam right now watching the Philippines in its rearview mirror, and realizing it's not slowing down. See, for years Vietnam was the golden child. The manufacturing beast. Western investors drooled over it like it was Southeast Asia's answer to China. Fast, reliable, no nonsense. Meanwhile, the Philippines? Yeah, we were the lovable mess. A little chaotic. Too many karaoke nights. Not enough infrastructure. The kind of underdog everyone roots for, but no one bets on. Until 2023. GDP growth? Vietnam, 5.05%. The Philippines, 5.6%. For the first time in forever, Manila wore the crown, Southeast Asia's fastest-growing economy. And Vietnam? Had to clap politely, while side-eyeing. Now before you say, oh, but Vietnam still dominates manufacturing. Sure, that's true. But here's the twist nobody's ready to admit. The world's moving faster than factories can. And the Philippines? It's exporting services at a pace Vietnam just isn't matching. BPOs, tech support, digital talent, all firing on all cylinders. We're talking about $35.5 billion in BPO revenue in 2023. That's not a stat. That's a statement. And if you think Vietnam's not sweating, think again. In Hanoi's government halls, they're having late-night meetings they won't post about. Because here's the gut punch, it's not just about GDP. It's about perception, momentum, buzz. You know that one friend who gets a haircut, a new job, and suddenly everyone wants to date them? Yeah, that's the Philippines right now. And Vietnam? Is wondering how the backup singer suddenly booked the world tour. Let's be honest, Vietnam's not the villain here. This isn't some Marvel plot. It's just watching the rules of the region change, and realizing it might have to stop playing safe. Because now, in forums like ASEAN and regional trade talks, people aren't just listening to Vietnam anymore. They're turning their heads toward this loud, young, chaotic, but ridiculously promising archipelago. And the kicker? Arsenio Balisacan, the Philippines' economic chief, didn't come to play nice. He came out swinging. We're projecting 6.5% to 7.5% growth this year. Translation? Thanks for the crown. We're not giving it back. So, here's your curiosity loop. What happens when the student doesn't just catch up, but outpaces the teacher? What does Vietnam do when the BPO kid with messy hair and zero expectations becomes the headline act? And what does the rest of Southeast Asia do when the regional pecking order gets flipped like a bad K-drama twist? Because make no mistake, this rivalry isn't over. It's just getting personal. Vietnam's still got fire. The Philippines just lit its own. The stage is set. Now ask yourself, who's watching this play out? And who's still pretending it's not happening? If you're feeling this shift, smash that like button, share this with a friend who still thinks Vietnam's untouchable, and drop your take in the comments. Stay with us. This ride's not over.